illustrator and art therapist Bodhi Simpson's book launch and artist talk. Her new book, The Girl Who Cried for the Earth, A Story of Hope, Healing, and Possibilities, has been awarded a Words of the Earth 2025 Book of the Earth Award for Ecofiction, and has also made the long list for the 2025 Green Earth Book Award in the category of Picture Book Intermediate. Bodhi Simpson holds a doctorate in philosophy, is a licensed clinical professional counselor in Maine, and a registered art therapist. She's an assistant professor here at UMF in the Masters in Counseling Psychology program with an emphasis in the creative arts. She has 20 years of experience working with clients of all ages and educating clinicians across the state of Maine about the field of art therapy, as well as teaching tools and techniques for incorporating creative expression into clinical practice. She also has a small private practice in central Maine and is a local and international workshop presenter. In conjunction with Bodhi's talk today, there is an exhibit of her original paintings that serve as the illustrations for the book along the ramp of the Emory Center. It's on the other side of this wall. So if you didn't see it as you came in, make sure you see it as you're going out. It's really wonderful to get to see the original works. And then following her talk today, she'll be facilitating a creative wellness practice in acknowledgement of our collective angst about what's happening on and to our planet, and an opportunity to express visions of hope, healing, and possibility as we step forward. So please join me in welcoming Bodhi Simpson.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here with me today on Earth Day. I know that many of us are feeling unafraid and unsure about how to express our feelings of grief and angst about what's happening on our planet and to our planet. Many of us want to make a difference, but we're unsure where to begin. This afternoon, I'm going to share with you some artwork and messages from my recently published book, because it seems that we're all in need of a new story. My hope is that this story might provide inspiration for you as you step forward into these uneasy times of great change and possibility. Initially, this was my personal story. This was a form of my own art therapy. It was an acknowledgement of my own thoughts and feelings, and what I realized is that through my process, what I thought was my story expanded and became part of a larger story. I realized that maybe this story was showing us a way forward. I'm going to share with you what I've come to understand as a result of this process. So today you're going to hear the story about the story. I'm going to start with when I initially wrote the story. This was about 8 or 9 years ago. And my stepfather, John, was living with us, and he was in the process of dying. John was terrified of dying, and I was very connected to the feelings of sadness, grief, suffering in the world. I grabbed a piece of paper, and I wrote down a story. It was called The Girl Who Cried for the World at the time. The Girl Who Cried for the World, and it was about a little girl who was really tuned in and feeling the sadness and suffering of the world. And then there was an ending where everything worked out and, it was a happy life. And there was definitely the middle missing. I wasn't really sure how to connect the beginning of the story to the ending of the story. It felt more like a dream that wasn't realistic at the time, and so I put the story away. A few years later, I started taking a course with Dr. Will Tagle from Wimberley, Texas, and this painting was born. This course was called Eco Meditation, and Dr. Will Tagle co-created a conscious community out in Wimberley, Texas with Marcellus Bearhart Williams, and he was a Muskogee Creek elder, and so through Will's teachings, I was taking that year to connect to the landscape around me, to explore how Earth was communicating to me and through me. I was very drawn to the plants and the animals around me through that year. And so as I became aware of an animal in my life, I would paint it on this canvas. And I was amazed with how many animals that I'd never seen before, that were all around me, that, just bringing my attention to the landscape around me. I saw a bobcat. I saw a fox. I saw a beaver. There was a raccoon in my backyard. All of these creatures that, had I not been paying attention in this way, I might have missed. I perceived every being as I painted as a form of consciousness that was communicating to me. And it was a really powerful process to be supported in engaging in my life in this way. After this course, I met Dr. Will Tagle in person, and I actually brought him my story. I had kind of sketched out the beginning and the ending, and I said, Will, I've written this story. What do you think? And so he read the story. He got up to the point where the girl was crying, and he said, oh, she's crying for a vision. And I said, what does that mean? I never heard of that before. Still didn't know what it meant. He didn't tell me. I put the story away and continued painting. So through this time, we entered into COVID, and really for the next many years, so the paintings for this story took about 7 years to complete. So they didn't know that they were going to be part of a larger story when they were created. They were, again, just a place for me to be with my process, be with my feelings, and also connect to my imagination. What was interesting is that what I didn't know at the time is that the paintings became the vision that the girl was crying for. So after I finished painting the paintings, again, it was COVID. I didn't know what to do with them all. You saw them in the hallway. I lined them up in my basement, and I recognized the story, and I realized, oh my goodness, this is the same story that I had written. And so what I did is I got the story out, and then I looked at each painting in connection to the larger story, and the painting would talk to me and share a message with me through my own meditation, and that's how the story was born. Again, a lot of these were created during COVID. I had plenty of time to be with my deep thoughts, to be with my feelings. As I was connecting to the animals and the nature, I became so aware of the ways that the plants and the animals had been losing their habitats and their lives. And, just thinking about how we cut and burn down beautiful forests, and we take what we want from nature for our own benefit. I thought about the ways that we pollute our air and how this affects the health of all the beings on our planet. I thought about the ways that we contaminate the water and how this affects life on Earth. Right before COVID, my family and I went to visit my grandmother in Florida, and on Christmas Day, we were going to go to the beach, and she said, well, let's just take a box of trash bags in case there's some trash. That's my grandmother. And we spent all day, we used 10 trash bags. Instead of laying on the beach, we picked up trash. And I realized, oh my goodness, why is nobody picking this up? Why is there trash everywhere? So I really thought about, I saw the birds and the creatures and just thought about how we were hurting our planet. I also thought about the ways that people are causing pain to each other with their words and actions. There just seemed to be so much pain and so much suffering that it really weighed on my heart, and it was like I could just feel the pain of the world. I could feel the pain of the people, the plants, the creatures, and even the planet, even the earth. I became pretty confused because I felt alone in my experience, and it didn't seem like anybody was talking about this, and I felt like it was a crisis, and everybody was ignoring what I was seeing and what I was feeling. And with that strong emotion, I felt this strong urge to keep painting. So anytime I would have these big emotions, I would bring it to the canvas, and what happened is I would have several canvases out at a time, and so I would weave in and out of my heavy feelings, and then into the joy and the beauty, and back to the heavy and the joy and the beauty. And so through this process, I was able to be with all of it so that I didn't get consumed in the heavy, in the sad. As I painted my grief and feelings of hopelessness and despair, because of this eco-meditation course that I had been taking, I had learned to talk to the earth. I started communicating to nature and to the planet. And what I ended up doing is offering an apology. I didn't know what else to do. In this painting, this is literally kind of what I had been doing like an hour before I painted it. I was really feeling overwhelmed. So I'd like to read to you a little excerpt from this part of the story. So you can see, as I saw this image, I knew this was part of the larger story, The Girl Who Cried for the Earth. And as I looked at this painting in relation, this is what came. Once she reached the top of the mountain, she lay down beneath a tree, placed her head upon the soft ground, and cried with every last bit of energy that she had. She cried for everything, for everyone, for every creature. She cried for all of the suffering in the world. The girl apologized to Earth for the hopelessness that she felt and for how she and so many others had added to the problems. She apologized for all of it, the trash, the oil spills, and the fires. She apologized for the way people hurt nature and one another. She begged the earth to hear her apologies on behalf of everyone for how we've considered mainly ourselves. She cried until she had no more tears left and drifted off to sleep. As I was being with the depth of those feelings and acknowledgement of them, I was also having very vivid dream experiences and also inner imagery in my meditative practices. It was definitely a time of awakening for me. I'm sure we've all had those dreams where it's like you wake up and it's like, wow, that was a message I need to write down. So instead of writing it down, I went to the canvas and I did my best to paint what I saw. And even still, when I look at this painting, I can still feel the feeling I had in the dream, and it's like it still talks to me. In my dream, a jaguar came and was teaching me how to regulate my nervous system because I really felt locked in fear. The jaguar taught me how to get out of my head and connect to my body and the earth. So I'd like to read you the message from my dream. That night in her dreams, the girl found herself walking alone in the darkness. She noticed the glowing green eyes of a large black jaguar that was crouched down on the ground. Her body froze with fear, and she held her breath. The jaguar spoke to her. I see you. Keep your gaze on my eyes. Breathe. Stay present with your fear. Connect to the sensations of your body. Feel the ground under your feet. When you stay present with your fear, it can shift into great power and strength. The girl took a deep breath, breathed into her fear, and she felt her body relax. She kept her gaze on the jaguar's glowing eyes until they melted away. And I can't tell you how many times since painting this painting, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I just have to look at this painting and I hear the message from the jaguar reminding me to stay present with my fear. Stay present. There's information, there's wisdom in all of our feelings. As I mentioned, my inner imagery in meditation started to become more vivid. And so I also was painting experiences that I had in my meditation to the best of my ability to share what I perceived. And this was an experience where I perceived a buffalo in meditation. And the buffalo helped me to perceive an energetic web of life. And through this painting and through my meditative practice, my perspective began to shift because I started looking at life through the lens of our interconnection with all aspects of life. And I'd like to read you some of the words from this image as well. The buffalo explained, "It's important that you understand that what people do to the web of life, they do to themselves. People have felt they've needed to have power over what they are one with. We all have a responsibility to help the web. I'm here to support you as you move forward steadily with courage and strength through this time of uncertainty. You're moving across a bridge to a new beginning. The bridge is created with each step forward. Trust your heart to guide you." As the buffalo spoke, the girl felt a warm connection in her heart. The energy around the buffalo rippled, and a shimmering web of light appeared and expanded in all directions as far as her eyes could see. She was shown how everything was connected in a beautiful web of life. Through the process of these paintings, I had many images of earth, and I would imagine the healing of earth, bringing love to earth. It was some kind of action I could take from my basement during COVID. And it was like, as I painted earth, I started to see myself. And I started to think, if all life is interconnected, we are earth. So we have our individual identity. We also have a larger identity as earth. And what this painting shared with me is, "Dear one, you are so much more than you believe yourself to be. Allow your ideas of who you think you are to soften. Notice yourself as part of something larger. Feel your connection with all living things. Our hearts beat as one. See the forests and oceans as extensions of your true identity." I started to wonder, maybe this wasn't just my vision quest, but maybe this was Earth's vision quest through me. Perhaps as an aspect of Earth, through my creative process, Earth was becoming conscious of herself. I thought, maybe Earth sends us imagery and a new story, not just to heal humanity, but to help heal herself. In the story, once the girl awakens from her dream sequence, she's changed. She sees clearly. She sees life through the eyes that she did when she was a little girl, where everything was possible and magic and anything could happen in her imagination. And she learned how to communicate with the earth and with the creatures, and she looked up at an eagle, and the eagle showed her how she could rise above the challenges to see a higher vision, to see a higher perspective, and not just through the lens of her individual identity. So I'm going to share the message that came from this painting. And actually, this part of the message was the other end of, some of it was the other end of the story that I wrote when John was dying. This was the vision that I had initially had, but I didn't know how to get there. Just beyond the horizon, the girl saw Earth's new beginning. She saw all the people on Earth living as one family. People trusted each other, and they remembered how to love one another. They remembered that they need each other, and they came together in cooperation. People were connected to nature and the elements. They lived in harmony with the animals. They learned the secrets of the plants. They respected the wisdom of the rocks, and they listened to the wind. Together, they carried peace and love in their hearts, and they honored and celebrated all aspects of life. The girl thanked this eagle for the gift of clear vision, and for showing her that we must first take the time to shift our perspective and imagine a better world before we can create one. As I reflected on all of the message that came through this story, so the story really, we have this image of the web behind the girl, this interconnection of life. The story itself, if you read it and if you look at the paintings, it's a weaving of many different teachings, thoughts, visions. I've shared with you the words that came through to me, but if you look at the paintings yourself, who knows, maybe some messages will come through for you that would be a little different. But what I'd like to share today is my perspective of what it means to see through the eyes of the heart as is taught in the story. And what always comes to mind is when my daughter was little, she would say to me, "Mom, grown-ups are just big kids. They just forgot." And I think she was like 5 when she said that. And when she said it, it went to my core, and I was like, "You're so right. You are right." So again, I feel like many of us, we're born knowing how to engage with life and how to use our imaginations in this way. Maybe we just forgot. And, with our loving attention and with practice, we can remember, we can rewire ourselves to enter into life with our hearts wide open. And instead of staying stuck in what we think we know based on what we've been through in our life, just like in the story, we can open our imaginations to what hasn't been created yet, but is coming through our inspiration and our vision. I realized that love is the bridge to a new beginning. And our heart, if we're connecting with our heart considers the highest good of all. So really growing that ability to connect to our heart's intelligence as well as we vision, as we think. A shift in our perspective is needed. Maybe we could soften our eyes a little bit as we connect to our hearts to really see and feel our interconnection and to mindfully bring compassion and love to our choices and actions. So again, just taking the time to connect our imaginations to our heart's intelligence so that we can feel and see into new possibilities for ourselves, for our community, and for our planet. And another question that came that I wanted to address or start a conversation is, how can we heal Earth with imagination and creative expression? Through my process with painting and writing, this became very present in my awareness that by taking some kind of action in our own healing process, our own understanding, we're helping, right? If we're all connected by the web of life, this ripples out and we inspire each other. And my hope is that, who knows, maybe somebody will be inspired from this talk or from this story. When I published the story, I said to myself, okay, if at least one person benefits from reading this or seeing the paintings, then it did its job. And it was like a month after it was published, I received an email from somebody across the country that was deeply touched, and it helped inform their work in the world. And so I knew, okay, all right, it's out there. It's important that we share, not just to engage in our expression, take the time to connect to how we feel and what we're thinking about, but to share it, to be vulnerable and share. And if you're comparing yourself going, oh, but Bodhi, I don't paint, or oh, I'm not good at creativity. Anything we do is creativity. So again, it could be the way that you cook, that you bring your attention to your family, the way that you dress, it's really just mindfully bringing your presence and your love and your imagination to your way of being in the world. Also, we can take time to connect to the earth and to listen to how she's communicating to us and to listen to what's being expressed through us, because remember, maybe these are whispers from the planet to help us to see. And remembering we have to take the time to imagine a better world before we can create one. Obviously, doing things the same way or out of fear isn't helping, so maybe we could create that space and that pause every day to to get curious about what do we want to create. And the other wonderful thing about creative expression, again, whether it's visual art, movement, writing, music, as we bring our attention to how we're feeling, so we got to be with that first. Then we can start to cultivate through our expression the experience of feeling peace, of feeling love. So some people will say to me, but Bodhi, I can't feel peace and love because I'm too mad, or I can't forgive, I can't let go of this. And so through our creation, and that's what we're going to talk about after this, for those of you that are interested, it's finding ways to be with all of it. So it's not disowning the fact that we are angry, that we are feeling grief, that, whatever it is that's weighing on you. It's bringing your attention to that through your creativity. And the truth is that, right, if we're thinking about our wholeness, life is also always beautiful and full of wonder and full of possibilities. So how can we play with all of it? And as I start to bring this talk to a close, I put together a few questions for you that were inspired by what came through to share with you today, that were inspired by the story. And so I'm just going to read each question, and what I'd like you to do is just allow the words to settle into your body and notice, is there any dissonance in your body? Is there information that I'm not bringing my attention to these things? Or maybe there's a feeling of, yes, I am doing this. Yay, I want to do more of this. So just pay attention to the senses of your body as I read the questions. Are you creating time and space to honor the truth of how you're feeling every day? Are you taking time to notice the magic, the beauty, and the gifts in each moment, even the really hard ones? Do you create time every day to have fun, laugh, and play? And remember, this is different for all of us. It could be a subtle little giggle. It could be a full belly laugh. But what brings you some joy? What excites you? Who do you love? Are you creating time and space to imagine and feel into possibilities? So, once you've acknowledged your story, how you feel about it, you can open up your heart and mind to something beyond your awareness that might be wanting to come through. How does Earth communicate with you? Maybe you already know, and if you're not sure, I invite you for the next year to pay attention to how Earth is communicating to you. Are you speaking and taking action from a place of love and compassion? And if you're not, are you allowing yourself the space to pause, to be with what's coming up before you speak and take action? And what actions can you take in this moment? Part of why the girl was so overwhelmed is because it felt too big. But what she realized is through her awareness of our interconnection that simply bringing her own love and attention to herself and the world around her was an action she could take that would help the larger whole. So, maybe you can play with that in your own meditation practice. And finally, do you have community to share your dreams and visions with? A part of what helped this book to be born is that I had Dr. Tagle, and I had the community that he had created that really supported me and wanted to hear more. What are you painting? What's the story? It's like, I realized it's important to find like-minded community where you can be authentic and express yourself in whatever way is you, and be held in that and be respected for that. And so if you don't have this, if there's a dissonance in your body as you think about that, maybe you can get curious as you step forward in this next year of who is your community where you can explore your visions and dreams. I'd like to share the writing on this page, and then that will be the close of this talk. And for those of you that are interested, we will have the opportunity to engage in a creative practice out in the lobby. We are all in this circle together. May you walk forward in beauty with grateful eyes, a clear mind, and an open heart. Thank you.